Welcome to the most important journey you will ever undertake. This class is based on A Course in Miracles, a spiritual process that can assist and guide anyone to release fear and guilt, allowing health, joy, and peace of mind to return. The series is presented by Carol Howe, one of the first course students, earliest course teachers, and biographer of Bill Thetford, co-scribe of A Course in Miracles. Grounded in science and research, with decades of teaching and counseling experience, Carol is a world-renowned expert who will show you how to apply this material to all the circumstances of your daily life. In this session, we will discover the specific ways we build and maintain the ego, offer our allegiance to it, and suffer from that allegiance. Learn how to change your mind, be relieved of the pain the ego delivers, and move into a deeper, happier experience of life.
Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. What a really wonderful time for us to come back together. I hope your month has been fruitful. I hope you've practiced. Did you practice? Well, I don't hear a great big yes. The Course knows we're reluctant learners, so we're not very enthusiastic in the beginning of all of this. So to do a little review, a very short review, the Course is about bringing us to a place of peace. It's not about grand things like awakening and enlightenment and what happens after you die and so on. All of those things will follow from what happens. But this is about allowing us to come to a place of contentment and peace and live in a world that's friendly and helpful, and the sense of conflict can go away. So that's the goal of the Course. Simple enough, except we rarely can attain it. So this message of how to come to a place of peace, ultimately allowing us to realize we are in a hallucinating state, has been brought to us from ancient times. And as collectively we have asked for help, help has been given us. Normally, in terms of masters, avatars, Buddha, Jesus, the people that we consider the great lights of the world. And they keep saying the same thing, that we are not who we think we are, that the place where we appear to live is not where we really live. So they keep saying, and we keep not listening. And so, yet again, the message has been brought to us, but I think brilliantly so, not from a guru type that can be worshipped. Because down through the years, we tend to worship the messenger instead of paying attention to the message. So this time, it comes as a body of material, but not associated with some grand master that we can see in the flesh. So I think that's wonderful that this is how it's currently presented. The source of the material is actually ourselves. In other words, there's really nothing or nobody besides us collectively. So as we collectively and individually say help, help keeps being given, and this is yet another round of help being brought into the dream or the hallucinated state that we're in. It comes from outside the hallucination, as we talked a little bit about with my brother last time in the hallucinated state he lived in for a while. So it comes from, the wisdom comes from outside, but it comes within the system so we can recognize it. This material and all of the other iterations that go back into antiquity are directly cognized material. It's not like somebody studied and studied and read and finally said, oh, I got it. Those to whom it was given, or those who were able to receive it, received it as a complete, directly cognized body of material. And Helen was no exception. So here we have amazing material that knows we're reluctant learners, that knows that when we first read it, we're reading it through that ego mind that is not cooperating. It knows that we have this amazing task of taking all the things that we think are true and real and valuable and that which needs protecting, and to switch it over 180 degrees. Well, this is a monumental task. So this is a remedial task. This is about unlearning. And it basically says, although not in quite this language, but it's what it says, is that we have dug ourselves into a cavernous hole. And now we're in the process, and it says you're just starting to take your first uncertain steps in coming out of the hole. It's a little bit like those Chilean miners, remember, last year, who were trapped in an impossible situation, and the engineering genius among us were able to contrive something that would allow them to come up slowly and carefully and somehow get out of the hole. And the Course is designed to do that. That's why it's so wrong and so repetitive. It's trying to gently, in a way that we can tolerate, bring us out of the hole we're in, which is done by taking what we believe and think is true and switching it gradually 180 degrees. It says you've got everything upside down and backwards. My mother told me a story many years ago that I think bothered her a little bit all of her life. When she was a very little girl, she and her younger sister were in the kitchen with my grandmother, and my mother's little sister got hold of a kitchen knife. And of course, this was alarming to their mother, and my mother decided she would be a helpful big sister and went over and snatched the knife out of her hands, which of course didn't cut her fingers off, but cut her badly, and pandemonium ensued. And the Course knows we're hanging on to something which is so sharply dangerous to our peace of mind. Not in reality, but in the place where its attempt is to kind of gently pry those fingers loose from something that we're hanging on to that hurts us. Does that make sense? So it's why it's so long and why it's so repetitive. Do you have a question about that? Does that make sense? Okay, so it's helpful to know we're all in the same boat, in a hole. That kind of takes the arrogance out of it. So we're all in the same boat, needing to unlearn the things that we have all been programmed to believe are so. So once again, being a former systems engineer with IBM, I am qualified to talk about programming and the need for reprogramming when something doesn't work. So this is, once again, in more modern parlance that certainly younger people can relate to, it's a reprogramming. Okay, so now I have to read you something. I was looking through something to just give you an idea of how consistent down through the ages has been the message that we need to let go of the ego mind and become who we really are. So I'm going to read you this. It's just a short little statement. It's not the whole page. That says, turning toward the truth, the follower grows through love, deserts his ego, finds the truth, and arrives at the perfect. He then returns from this spiritual journey as a man who has reached maturity and a greater perfection, able to love and to be of service to the whole of creation. You know that's the mission statement for? The Sufis, the mystical order of Islam, which was founded basically by Rumi, the famous Persian poet Rumi, who's now over 700 years old, and he's the most widely read poet in the world. I didn't know that until recently. I don't know how I found that out, but somehow I did. They are the group from whence comes the whirling dervishes. Have you seen the whirling dervishes in Turkey now with very tall hats? They don't come to a point, they're flat on the top. And they have very big, full skirts, and they whirl around. And a number of years ago, I was blessed with the opportunity of seeing one of the ritual whirling dervish ceremonies in Turkey, and it was just astounding to watch. And in their literature, they say that this tall hat they wear represents the ego's tombstone. And the great big long skirt represents the ego's shroud. In other words, the ego needs to go if we're going to have any hope of any peace of mind. I just think that's an interesting little fact that I didn't know before, and I thought you might like to know that. Especially since for many people, Islam has come under such fire to know that a mission statement like this comes from the mystical branch, I think is just an interesting little side note. Okay, I want to review with you a little bit about how we got to where we are. The Course talks